The mountains of northern Wyoming woke slowly that morning, wrapped in a pale fog that drifted between the pines like a half-remembered dream. Spring was trying to arrive, but winter hadn't quite loosened its grip. Patches of snow clung stubbornly to the shaded ground, and the air held a sharp, lonely chill. Caleb Rowe stood on the front steps of his cabin, hands wrapped around a tin cup of coffee, watching the horizon soften as the sun climbed higher. At 42, solitude had become his habit, maybe even his shield. His face bore the quiet marks of a man who had lived more with silence than with people. The kind of man who spoke only when words truly mattered. The mountains stretched wide below him, rough land, honest land. 180 acres carved from wilderness by years of stubborn effort. Caleb had built nearly everything himself: the fences, the barn, the cabin, and the life that went with it. A life without company. It had been 12 years since Emma died. 12 years since laughter last lived in this place. By late morning, the sound of approaching footsteps broke the stillness. Not a wagon, not a rider, just someone walking, slowly, unevenly. Caleb narrowed his eyes, instinctively wary. When the figure came into view, his breath caught. A woman. She moved like someone running on will alone. Her dress was dust-stained, her boots worn thin. She carried a small suitcase that seemed far too heavy for her trembling arms. When she saw him, relief flashed across her face, followed instantly by collapse. Caleb crossed the distance without thinking, catching her just before she fell. She was light, frighteningly so, exhausted, dehydrated, alive but barely. He carried her inside. Hours later, rain hammered the roof as she sat wrapped in a blanket by the fire, color slowly returning to her cheeks. Her name was Clara Whitmore. She'd come from Ohio, and according to the letter in her bag, she was supposed to be his wife. Caleb stared at the paper, his name signed in handwriting that wasn't his. "I didn't write this," he said quietly. The truth landed hard. Clara didn't cry. She didn't accuse. She simply nodded, absorbing the reality with a strength that surprised him. "I have nowhere else to go," she said. Outside, the storm worsened, roads flooded, night fell early. "You can stay until the weather clears." That night, something changed. She cooked using supplies he'd forgotten he owned. She cleaned without being asked. She moved through the cabin as if it remembered her, as if the walls themselves recognized the warmth of another human presence. They spoke little, but silence between them felt different, less heavy. By morning, the storm hadn't passed, and neither had the strange sense that fate, clumsy and imperfect, had placed them both exactly where they needed to be. Caleb didn't believe in second chances, but as he watched Clara laugh softly at something small and ordinary, he wondered, just briefly, if some things weren't meant to be planned at all.